I got home from work pretty late, around 8 p.m., and I was wiped. All I wanted to do was chill. So I threw on some old pajamas, grabbed a snack, and hopped into bed with the TV on. The apartment felt quiet and safe, just how I like it after a long day. About an hour later, I was just lying there halfway through a show when I heard a weird sound from downstairs. At first, I figured it was nothing, just the house settling or maybe the pipes. You know how old places make noise. But this one was different. It didn't sound random. It sounded like something, or someone, moved. I told myself I was just being jumpy. Still, I got up, grabbed my water bottle, and went to check. I looked around, living room, kitchen, even the laundry nook. Nothing. Everything was exactly how I left it. I went back upstairs, but I couldn't shake this weird feeling, like something was off. About 10 minutes later, I heard another sound. This one I knew exactly what it was. One of my floor lamps had fallen over in the living room. I knew the sound well because that lamp is always wobbly. It's this tall, skinny thing that tips over if you so much as brush past it. But the thing is, I hadn't been anywhere near it, and there was no one else in the house. I headed downstairs again, a little slower this time. Sure enough, the lamp was lying flat on the floor. I picked it up and stood there for a minute looking around. I didn't hear anything else. I didn't see anything either. Still, it made my skin crawl. That lamp had never just fallen over by itself before, not unless someone knocked into it. Trying not to freak out, I walked through the house again. No windows were open, no doors unlocked. Nothing seemed out of place. But in my gut, I knew something wasn't right. I went back up to my room, turned the TV down, and tried to listen to the sounds around me. I wanted to prove to myself it was just the storm outside making me nervous, but after a while I started hearing something even weirder. It sounded like rain, but not outside, like it was coming from inside the house. I followed the sound downstairs. It got louder the closer. I got to the hallway near the kitchen. That's when I remembered the tiny storage room at the end of the hall, the one I never go into. There's a small window in there, and suddenly I was sure that's where the sound was coming from. When I opened the door, I froze. The window in that storage closet was wide open. Rain was pouring in, soaking a bunch of boxes. The floor was wet, and the wind had blown papers everywhere. I hadn't opened that window. In fact, I never opened that window. I hadn't even been in that closet in months. I shut it quickly and just stood there, heart pounding. The rest of the house was dark and silent, but I didn't feel alone anymore. It was like the air had changed, like someone else was breathing it with me. Then I realized something that made it worse. My phone was still upstairs on my bed. So I had two choices. Either go back up and grab it, or get out of the house right now. My brain couldn't think straight. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to move. I crept over to the kitchen, grabbed my car keys, and tiptoed toward the front door. I didn't want to make a sound. If someone was in the house, I didn't want them to know I was leaving. I had almost made it when I heard it. Heavy footsteps, running, upstairs. They were fast, like someone sprinting across the hallway above me, and then down the stairs. I didn't wait. I ran straight out the front door into the rain and didn't look back. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and sped off. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely dial 911. When the police got there, the house was empty. No signs of a break-in, no broken locks or windows. But then one of the officers pointed something out. The wall in the storage room, the one with the window. It lined up exactly with the lamp that had fallen over earlier. Maybe the person who climbed in through that window had accidentally knocked it over from the other side. That means someone had broken in. They didn't steal anything. They didn't leave any clear clues. But the scariest part is what the cops think happened next. Whoever it was probably stayed inside the house, maybe hiding upstairs waiting. waiting for me to fall asleep. I don't know if they wanted to rob me or something worse, but knowing someone was walking around my home, right outside my room, while I was just sitting there watching TV, that still haunts me. Even now sometimes, when I'm home alone, I get that same feeling, that someone's watching me from the other side of a door, that maybe I'm not alone, and I always check that little storage window. I never meant to be out there that late. It was supposed to be a quick trip. Just drop off some boxes at a friend's place on the edge of the county and head back before dark. But one thing led to another. And by the time I left, the sky had already turned that deep bluish-black color where everything starts to blend into shadows. I wasn't too worried at first. I'd taken that road before. It was quiet. Mostly trees, but not creepy. Just empty. But that night, something felt different. For starters, I didn't see a single car the whole drive. Not one. Just miles of tall trees, broken fences, and the occasional old road sign covered in rust. And when I say road sign, I mean the kind that's so faded you can't even read it anymore. My phone had already died. I forgot to bring the charger, and the van's built-in GPS froze halfway through the trip. So yeah, I was going off memory. Not great. Then the van started pulling to the side, almost like it was drifting on its own. I figured maybe the wind was strong, but when I slowed down, I heard a soft, flapping noise coming from the back. Not loud, but steady, like something was dragging or thumping. I pulled over to check it out. The road was silent. Completely. Not even bugs chirping. The kind of silence that makes you notice your own breathing. I stepped out, walked around the van, and sure enough, the rear tire looked weird. I crouched down and found a piece of metal stuck deep in the rubber. Not huge, but big enough to cause trouble. It hadn't flattened yet, but I knew it would. I stood up, trying to decide what to do next. I had no phone, no map, and no clue how far the next gas station was. The idea of driving on a damaged tire down a dark road with no signs didn't sound great. But sitting there in the dark felt worse. That's when I saw headlights in the distance. At none. First I felt relieved. Finally another person. Maybe they'd help or tell me how far I was from town. The car came around the bend and slowed down, then stopped about 10 feet behind me. Its headlights were on full blast, flooding everything with harsh white light. But no one got out. I waited. 1 minute passed. Then 2. The engine was still, running. The driver's door opened, but for a second, no one stepped out. Then he appeared, a tall man wearing a dark coat and jeans. I couldn't see his face at all, just a shadow moving through the light. He walked slowly, hands in his pockets like he had all the time in the world. Not in a rush, not even curious. Just walking. He came up to the driver's side window and leaned down a little. I'd already rolled it down part way when he was walking over. "You okay?" he asked. His voice was flat. No emotion, just words. Yeah, I said. My tire's acting up and I'm kind of lost. Do you know where we are? He didn't answer right away. Just stood there. Then he looked past me into the back of the van. Not a glance, like he stared into it. "I might have something that can help," he finally said. "Hold on." And just like that, he turned and walked back toward his car. Something about the way he moved made my skin crawl. He didn't act surprised or concerned. He didn't even ask questions. And that long look into my van, it didn't feel like curiosity. It felt like he was checking something. I watched him walk around to his trunk. The lights were still too bright to see much, but I could tell he was rummaging through something. Not quickly. Carefully. I couldn't explain it, but everything in me screamed to get out of there. It was like my instincts knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. Then just as he started walking back, I caught a flash of metal in his hand. Not a phone, not a tool. It was something longer, thinner, I didn't wait. I threw the van into drive and hit the gas. Just as I started moving, I saw him crouch beside my back tire and slam something into it, hard. I sped off, hearing gravel shoot up and slam against the undercarriage. In the mirror, I saw him jump back like he wasn't expecting me to move so fast. For the next 5 minutes, I drove like I was being chased. My hands were shaking, my heart was thudding in my chest, and every time I glanced in the mirror, I half expected to see headlights flying up behind me, but they never came. Finally, I saw a flickering neon sign in the distance. A gas station or maybe a repair shop. I didn't care. I pulled in fast, got out, and ran straight to the side of the van. The tire was worse now. The piece of metal he'd shoved in was still sticking out. It was a screwdriver, wedged in deep. Probably the only reason I'd made it that far without the tire blowing apart. I called the local police from the station's old wall phone, told them everything. The officer on the other end didn't say much, just told me to stay where I was, and that someone would be there soon. That's when it really hit me. He hadn't tried to help. He didn't ask questions. He didn't seem surprised to find someone stranded on a road that hardly anyone used anymore. And that screwdriver in the tire? That wasn't random. He brought it with him. He planned to use it, but not to fix anything. As I sat in that little station, the buzzing light above me flickering on and off, I kept thinking the same thought over and over. What if I'd hesitated? What if I'd opened the door instead of driving away? What if I hadn't trusted that feeling in my gut? I don't know what that man was planning, but I'm sure of one thing. I wasn't the first person he stopped for on that road. And I might not have been the first to drive away either. But I have a horrible feeling someone didn't. My uncle used to talk about this hiking route in the highlands of Otumotai, near the coastal cliffs. He'd always say it was good for clearing your head, and since I'd just finished a rough work quarter, I figured I'd give it a try. It was mid-autumn, just before the tourist season kicked off, and the thought of wandering somewhere without notifications or meetings felt like medicine. I took a bus out to the edge of the village and walked the rest of the way to where the cliffs met the trees. There weren't any formal signs, just a painted orange mark on a tree, faded and half flaked off. I figured that was the trail. It didn't look official, but it looked used, kind of. A rough track ran between thick manuka bushes and I pushed ahead, figuring I'd be out there for a couple hours before heading back to the hostel. About 30 minutes in, I noticed thin tracks veering off from the main path, like deer or people had walked them once and never came back. They didn't lead anywhere obvious, just into dense brush or down into gullies. I ignored them. Still, they kept showing up. By the time I'd been walking for 2 hours, they were appearing every 10 minutes, snaking off in opposite directions, like the forest itself couldn't decide which way to go. Then the trail I was following just ended. No warning. It just stopped. One moment I was stepping over roots. The next, there was only brush and silence. No trees cut back, no trampled grass, just nothing. And then I heard something behind me. At first I thought it was an animal, but when I turned I saw someone, barely visible through the trees. A man in a brown shirt that hung in tatters and no pack. He wasn't walking toward me. He was crossing, moving from one of those strange side paths into another, not looking up like he had somewhere to be that didn't involve me. Still, something about him made my gut twist. He didn't move like a hiker or a local. He didn't move like anyone I'd seen out here before. I waited behind a tree until he disappeared, into the forest. I decided I was done. No lake view or whatever was worth the weird vibe. But when I turned to retrace my steps, I hit a problem. I didn't recognize the way back. The paths didn't look the same, and I was sure they hadn't branched that much earlier. I checked the dirt for footprints, mine or anyone's, but saw nothing clear. Then came the sound again. Footsteps, steady, coming from behind. I spun around. He was there again, Standing this time, not walking, just standing, facing me, like he'd been following my exact trail and paused once I noticed him. I couldn't see his face clearly through the trees, but I knew he was watching. That was enough. I picked a path, any path, and walked fast. Not running yet, but close. I kept looking behind me. For a while, he was gone. Then, after maybe an hour on what felt like the wrong trail, I stopped. My legs ached and my water was low. I leaned against a tall stump, catching my breath. The footsteps came again, slow, dragging, coming closer. I stayed behind the stump, knees bent, barely breathing. He passed 5 feet from me, staring straight ahead like he thought I was still walking. I don't know if he really didn't see me or if he was pretending not to, but either way, the moment he moved on, I turned and ran the other way. Eventually, I hit a fork in the trail. I didn't recognize either path, but picked the left because it angled downward, and I remembered the hike started with a climb. I kept walking. My legs hurt. The sun had dipped low, and now the only light was whatever slipped through the canopy. I didn't see him again, but I didn't forget him. When I finally made it back to the edge of the woods, the stars were out and the cliffs glowed under the moon. I walked the rest of the way in silence, listening for anything behind me. There was nothing. Not that night. I turned 20 just before moving back to Alara for the summer. My mom's house in the city was still loud and stuffy, so I stayed with my dad, who'd built this small place on the edge of nowhere. No streetlights, no sidewalks, just old trails and forest behind his fence. I liked the quiet. Too much, maybe. One weekend I decided I'd camp out by myself, not far, just a half-hour's walk into the woods. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just needed a night to myself. I packed light, tent, snacks, water, no speaker. I liked hearing the forest talk. I found a flat spot near a circle of stones and made camp. Fire, sleep, dreams I forgot the moment I woke up. I wasn't in a rush to head back. I took a slow walk that morning, thinking I'd hang around till the afternoon. But when I started back toward my dad's place, I realized I hadn't really paid attention to which direction I'd come from. After 20 minutes of walking, I should have been on his gravel road. Instead, I was surrounded by trees I didn't recognize. I told myself not to panic, just keep moving. But the trees didn't end. They got denser, darker. The sun wasn't setting yet, but the shadows were. That's when I saw the light. It flickered, weak and yellow, between the trunks. I made for it, hoping it was a porch light or cabin window. What I found was a house, more of a hut really. Old timber walls, crooked roof, a single light in the downstairs window, but no road, no path. Just that one house, dropped in the middle of the forest like a glitch in a video game. I circled it, staying behind the trees, trying to spot a mailbox or power line. There was nothing, just this house that shouldn't have been there. I rang the bell. Someone sprinted to the door. Fast, footsteps like they were already waiting. I took a step back, nervous. A voice called out, "Who's there?" "I'm lost," I said. "Just looking for the road." They opened the door. 2 men. They looked wrong. Not scary, just off. Like their expressions didn't fit their faces. One of them leaned out and scanned the woods behind me. "Come inside," he said, smiling without warmth. "I'm good. Just need to know which way to go." They didn't answer. They just looked at each other. One stepped forward, and behind him I saw the inside of the house. A bare floor, a lamp in the middle. No furniture, no shoes by the door. "Just camping?" one of them asked. "Yeah, that's all." They didn't believe me. One of them came. Outside, real close. Too close. That's when I moved. One step back, then another. Their faces changed, expressions gone, empty, like turning off a light. Then one lunged, I ducked and ran. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I tore through branches and thorn bushes, down slopes, through streams until their house was nothing but a memory. Eventually I found a fence, then the gravel road, then my dad's porch light. I told him everything. He called the authorities. They found the house, or what was left of it. It had been abandoned for 30 years. No power, no water, no recent use. So whoever those men were, they didn't belong there. And I don't think they ever meant to let me leave.